What is up YouTube? Welcome to my first ever long form video, and in this video I'm going to go through all the pros and cons to work out whether it's still worth owning an e-moto like a Surron or Talaria in 2026. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the pros and I'm going to move on to the cons. Now, some really obvious pros, as you can imagine, are the running cost of an electric bike. Normal combustion engines, you do have a lot more to deal with in terms of oil changes, spark plugs, fuel filters, all that kind of stuff. With things like the Surron, you don't have any of that. The only real maintenance you really need to do on the bike is just brake pads and just make sure the chain's getting enough oil. Apart from that, there's really nothing else to do. So the minimal amount of servicing also comes with running costs. So again, you don't really have to buy any parts apart from a couple of brake pads, maybe once a year, maybe a new chain every sort of 6 months to a year. And the actual running cost of the bike itself probably costs you 40 to 50p to charge the battery. And that pretty much sums up one of the biggest pros, which is running costs, because it literally costs you next to nothing to have a bike. Now, obviously being electric, there's a huge thing the government are trying to push here in the UK, and that's being more carbon neutral and eco-friendly, with which you could argue these bikes tick that box 100%. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know many people that have gone, do you know what, I really want to buy Surron because I want to save the environment. No one's really buying it for that reason, but it's still a massive pro, and I guess it has to be looked at. But yeah, no emissions, and therefore, massive eco-friendly. Now, the next pro, and what these bikes are notorious for, are how fast they are. Not only how fast they are, but how torquey they are. That has to be one of the biggest selling points of this type of bike. They're literally the two-wheel Tesla of the motorbike world, if that's what class you want to put them in, of course. They're fast, and the torque of them is unreal. When you start doing mods to them, obviously they become even faster and more torqueier, which just makes them the ultimate stunt machine. So definitely one of the biggest pros is the speed and the torque of these things. And with all that power, the other absolute beauty of these bikes is how quiet they are. Now you can rip around pretty much anywhere undetected because they're that quiet. If you're going through trails and field, nobody knows you're there. And if you're to do the same on a combustion engine, you can guarantee the amount of attention that's going to attract to yourself. So yeah, being quiet is definitely a pro. But depending on the type of bike you have, off-road, absolutely brilliant if you're ripping trails and stuff like that. A lot of the motocross tracks across the UK now are starting to open up specifically for these bikes because they can run events all times of the day and the night. You haven't got these loud engines, upsetting neighbours and wildlife and all that sort of stuff. But having said that, depending on the model you're riding, this can also be a con. Now, the reason I say that is the fact that the L1E obviously is very quiet and people do not hear you. Like, you could have people in front of you on the road, car park, stuff like that. And if people don't see you, they'll automatically just pull out. So yeah, it could definitely be a con. And I think a lot of motorbike riders will agree with that. The noise that your bike makes gives you that presence on the road. People know you're there, and I'm sure everyone's experienced it with electric cars as well. The amount of times you're in a car park, you're not quite paying attention. Before you know it, there's a car right in front of you. So yeah, it can be quite dangerous. Now, comparing these again to motocross bikes, motorbikes, mopeds even, the other huge advantage that these bikes have are the weight. These are super lightweight. I mean, for the L1E, you're talking 50 kg, so extremely easy to transport. You can throw it into the back of your car or your van. It's easy storage if you're storing it in the house, stuff like that. You're not lumping a huge, great motorbike through your house. So definitely one of the pros would have to be the weight factor. And then next pro you might not think is a pro because it attracts attention. But that would be the look of these things. They're so unique and they're so customizable, you can really make these bikes your own. It doesn't matter whether you're doing power upgrades, doesn't matter whether you're doing graphic kits. You can just make it look unique and literally just make it look your own. Now, the last pro I'm going to talk about kind of relates to the L1E version, and that's the fact that there's absolutely zero tax on them. So you can ride them legally on the road. You don't have to pay any road tax. So for most people, that's a massive advantage. But like I said, it all depends on what model you've got. Okay, now let's go through some day-to-day cons of owning a Surron or Talaria or an e-ride pro, any motor electric dirt bike. Probably one of the biggest ones, which I kind of touched on earlier, was the range anxiety. Now, if you have a combustion engine, you can pretty much go out for a day's ride, and as soon as you run out of fuel, you drop it to a petrol station, refill, you're on the way again. With e-bikes, they're not quite the same. Now, you can increase the range from things such as tire pressure, the way of riding, the style of riding, stuff like that. One of the biggest ways you're going to increase your range on one of these bikes would be investing in a new battery. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe, leave a like below, turn on post notifications on. It's absolutely free, so go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me. But yeah, going back on range anxiety, yes, it can be a bit concerning. It can be a concern depending on the battery you've got. But there are ways around it by upgrading batteries, different sprockets, tires, terrain, stuff like that. So yeah, you can actually improve it if needs be. And that is it. Those are all the pros and cons. So those are all my pros and cons for buying a Surron or Talaria in 2026. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Make sure you like, turn post notifications on, share this video to anyone who's thinking of getting an e-bike or Surron or Talaria. And I'll see you in the next one.